Matt Thompson had always prided himself on being unshakable. After all, spending 6 years as a night security guard was enough to test anyone's nerves. When he was assigned to the old Avery manufacturing warehouse, it seemed like just another gig. A decaying, forgotten relic of a company that had gone bankrupt years ago, the building was scheduled for demolition within the next few months. Until then, his job was simple. Watch the cameras, patrol the halls, and make sure nothing unusual happened. Nothing ever did. The first few weeks were routine. Matt would arrive at 11 p.m., settle into the tiny security office, and spend the night either reading or staring at the grainy black and white monitors. The cameras showed the same thing every night. Long, empty corridors, dark storage rooms, and dust-covered machinery. The air was stale, and the only sound that ever broke the silence was the soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Easy money, he thought. But on his third week, things began to change. It started subtly. A cold draft would occasionally sweep through the office, even though the windows were sealed and the doors locked. Matt would brush it off, telling himself it was just the old building's way of settling. Then came the noises. Soft, almost imperceptible at first. A distant creak, like footsteps in the hall. The faint scrape of metal against concrete. He'd glance at the monitors, seeing nothing but the same dark, empty halls. But one night, the sound was louder. At 2:37 a.m., as Matt flipped through his dog-eared paperback, a distinct bang echoed through the building, making him jump. He stared at the monitors, heart racing. In the southeast corridor, one of the heavy steel doors that led to the loading bay was slightly ajar. That was strange. Matt had locked it on his first patrol of the night. With a sigh, he grabbed his flashlight and reluctantly left the safety of the office. The hallway was silent as ever, the air thick with an unsettling stillness. His footsteps echoed off the concrete floor as he approached the door. The old hinges groaned as he pushed it closed, the sound sending a shiver down his spine. Then, just as his hand touched the handle, the noise came again, a bang, louder this time, as if something heavy had fallen. It came from the floor below, the basement. Matt had only been down there once, on his first day. It was a massive, cavernous space filled with old equipment, crates, and unused machinery. There was no reason for anyone to be down there. His pulse quickened, but he told himself it was nothing, probably a rat knocking something over. But protocol was protocol, so he descended the stairwell. The air in the basement was even colder than upstairs, damp with a musty scent that clung to his nostrils. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating rows of rusted shelves and old conveyor belts. He could hear the faint drip of water from somewhere deep in the shadows. "Hello?" His voice echoed hollowly through the cavernous room. No response. As he moved deeper into the basement, the oppressive silence pressed in on him. And then he saw it. At the far end of the room, tucked in a corner where the shadows were thickest, was a figure. It was standing still, too still. Just at the edge of his flashlight's beam, Matt froze. His first instinct was to shout, demand to know who was there. But something about the figure made his throat tighten in fear. "Hey!" he finally managed, his voice trembling. "This area's off limits." The figure didn't move. Matt's heart pounded in his chest as he took a step closer, shining his light directly at it. The beam flickered for a split second, and the figure vanished. Matt blinked. No one. The corner was empty. He swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he swept the flashlight around the room. Nothing. There was no one here, but that wasn't possible. He had seen someone. His mind raced as he quickly made his way back to the stairs, trying to rationalize what had just happened. His imagination must have been playing tricks on him, an optical illusion, a trick of the light. As he reached the top of the stairs and turned to close the basement door, his flashlight flickered again. The door creaked as it began to swing shut, seemingly on its own. His blood ran cold, and then, just as the door clicked closed, he heard it again. A whisper, soft but unmistakable, coming from the basement. "Matt!" His name. Matt slammed the door and sprinted back to the office, his heart in his throat. He locked the door behind him, breathing heavily, and collapsed into his chair. The monitors showed nothing, just the same empty halls and rooms. He sat there for what felt like hours, listening to the deafening silence, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. Every creak, every gust of air sent his nerves into overdrive. The building felt different now, alive, watching him. At 5 a.m., his relief finally arrived. Matt couldn't leave fast enough, barely acknowledging the other guard as he rushed out into the cold morning air. He didn't look back at the warehouse. The next day, Matt called in sick. He never went back. A week later, the company sent a new security guard to cover the night shift, but after only 2 nights, he quit without explanation. When asked why, all he would say was that the basement was not empty. The old Avery warehouse was demolished 3 months later. Some say it was just a crumbling building filled with shadows and creaking floors, but others, they say something far worse had been left behind, and it was still waiting. This story builds tension and leaves plenty of room for eerie sound design and atmospheric visuals to enhance the fear factor for your audience.